Alright, hey, what is up YouTube? Kyo here coming at you with a brand new YouTube video, and in this game we are going to be looking at the modified version of the build from last game. And it's going to be a game between myself and Vibe in the bottom left. I wanted to take a second because a few of you guys might be wondering, Kyo, why are all the games that you show on your YouTube channel games of you just owning players, or games where it looks like Protoss has a pretty good chance in Legacy of the Void? I thought you said, Protoss has, no chance of winning. And the first thing you guys who may not maybe realize this need to know is that, first off, the only reason that the games are progressing the way they are, and the replays I'm casting are even worth casting, or at least going over with, my own commentary on top of them, is because the Zerg players that I'm playing are making a conscious decision not to do something silly like decide to attack on 2 base before Protoss economy is actually semi-relevant, or attack before any production gets going for the Protoss player. It is almost entirely up to the Zerg player to dictate how the game is gonna play out, whether they choose to go for 3-hatch, or if they go speed, if they build Ravagers, if they build Roaches, if they come for an attack, timing attack. That kind of choice is actually up to the Zerg player right now in Legacy of the Void. So the only reason you're not seeing me go over these games where basically I get thrashed by Zerg players or Terran players or whoever is just because they're not very interesting. We all know, if you've been watching streams of Legacy of the Void, that those games happen pretty often, and, well, in my opinion, they're not very interesting and they're not very fun to play. And so that's basically the main reason why you don't see me going over replays like that. I basically say it anyway. Things like Ravagers, things like Cyclones are too strong, and I don't know, it should be pretty blatant to Blizzard that those need to be fixed. So I don't think it's worth spending too much time with video content creation and so forth on those. So instead, I like to spend some time showing you guys Protoss perspective on some of the cool builds we can be doing in Legacy of the Void. Of course, that goes without saying that if you didn't kind of get that vibe in Nero, and many of the other players that I've been showing replays of have obviously been trading games off of me just as well as I've been trading games off of them in Legacy of the Void. And I'm sure if they wanted to be super ladder heroes in the unranked playlist, they could just build Ravagers. And along the same lines, if you guys haven't really noticed, I haven't really been doing too many Protoss versus Terran replays, and that's just because there isn't very many Terran players playing right now. I think most of them are not very interested, especially North American Terran players. They are few and far between, so they're probably more focused on WCS and things of that sort. If you guys didn't know, people like Xenocider actually just qualified for WCS, so congratulations to them. To the game, though, we see that we are adding on Twilight Council, adding on a Stargate as well, 2 gateways. Vibe has gone up to 3 base, adding gas at his natural and getting a lair. We have 1 adept coming in here, just kind of scout it out, see what's going on. And we are moving on up to another Void Ray. Add on a few more probes, have only 1 gas on our natural. Adept up to 2 kills now. And we also see that we are adding on the shield upgrade that increases the adept shields by 50. Scouting around, trying to kill some overlords in the area. See Vibe up to 5 queens, adding on a 6th, just now getting Zergling speed. And a little bit about this build, I suppose, that I'm doing is, this is actually one of the first times that I tried it against a player with good mechanics, and it was the first time that Vibe had actually seen this build. So I wanted to see if, against a player who is pretty mechanically sound, if they had what they would do in response to this for the first time, as it kind of happens to them. You have to keep in mind that right now Vibe actually has pretty much no idea what's going on. He knows there's Void Rays. He does not know that there's a Twilight Council. Have our Adept coming in here. Hydralisk Den and Evolution Chamber. Down for Vibe. You can see that he's up to 62 workers right now. The timer says 9 minutes, but I think it's about 6 minutes in the game right now. This attack actually comes pretty early. You can see that we have 3 Void Rays. Come on, guys. This commentary thing is hard. You should hear me when I stream. If you haven't, you should definitely check out my stream. There's some very entertaining things that go on there. But anyway, we see that we're adding on those Adepts just like we did in the game with Nero. You see that Vibe is going up to a Lurker Den. Coming in here with a lot of Adepts, up to 11 now. And we can see that these Adepts actually just like murder Zerglings. Pretty hardcore. Lost 1 Void Ray there, but starting to micro these a little bit better now. Only lost a few Adepts up at the front there. The rest of them powering through from the Warpins in the back. And just starting to mow down Queens now. He did have up to 6 Queens, as we saw. But even with Transfuses, Zerglings and Queens not really enough. Hydralisk starting to come out now, but I'm not sure Hydralisks are really which one to be building versus Adepts either. Let's see, we have Adepts just running and chasing after stuff. Using the Shade ability to run in the base. Killing the 3rd base off here on the right with our Void Rays. Running a few more Adepts over to the left. Killing some more drones. Base goes down at the 3rd. Still though, Vibe is a little bit ahead in workers still. Starting to target down this hatchery with our Adepts. Adding on a Robotics back at home. Realizing that with Roaches, as I mentioned in the last game, that Vibe is going to be able to hang on here. Even though he's only got 1 base back here. He is going to hang on. Roaches, the definitive counter to Adepts. This is what I was kind of talking about, that Adepts are kind of gimmicky in PvP, but versus Zerg players who actually defend and make Roaches, that they're not very strong at all, really. In the games following this that I played with Vibe, the adjustment that he's been making is basically to just get to 55 workers or so and just mass Adepts, or mass Roaches. And does a pretty good job of just smashing this build, actually. The thing I've been trying to do from there is to basically just go into Void Rays. The thing that's kind of tricky, though, is burrowed Roaches just kind of like move past your army, and there's not really much you can do with Void Rays. Goes back to the whole economy thing. If you're making units instead of expanding, it's kind of hard for Protoss because you need the gas, but at the same time you're forced into securing more bases, so you get into this really weird predicament where you don't really have a good army, but the more you sit on that army instead of expand, the further they get ahead because they have another base. As a Zerg player, it's just a common thing. But in any case, we are moving up to a 3rd base, and ours is actually a bit ahead of Vibes on the recovery. 41 to 38 workers. Still haven't touched this gas geyser. And actually, this is something that I kind of want to mention as well. In the games that I was playing earlier on stream today, I played a Terran player, and we basically just both macroed, and he went mech, and I went for air sky toss, basically. And I had 6 bases as Protoss, and by the time I had my air army, I had essentially 4,000 minerals at the end of the game with 150 gas. And I had 6 bases. It was really odd, but it was pretty clear to me that this gas thing doesn't... It's like... It's even worse than I can describe or have been describing for Protoss. I don't really know. Like, you need so many bases as Protoss, even if just for the gas, because you can't be making zealots. Like I've been saying, you can't mineral dump on zealots. They're not anywhere near as good as they used to be. Adepts are a good way to make a unit that has a lot of health, pretty decent DPS, and has pretty good utility against light units, but you don't want to be spending your gas at all. You want to be saving that for your higher tech units, and when you get into situations, even on 6 base, where you don't have gas, and you have nothing to spend your minerals on, it's really kind of, I don't know, it feels really bad, basically. There's a lot of suggestions on where to take the economy model on Team Liquid lately. There's the DH10 or whatever. And honestly, I don't care where they take the economy model at this point, but clearly the Legacy of the Void economy that they have right now is not the one they want to be using. Got 6 kills on one of our disruptors there. Coming in with the drop, basically just to keep the pressure on Vibe. Trying to procure some more bases up here in the left side of the map. And this is something that I've kind of felt is also weird about this map, especially for Protoss, is that your bases kind of get further and further apart on a horizontal scale, further away from your main base, and it makes run-bys and roach attacks a lot harder to deal with, and especially drops from bio. That's another thing that I kind of have to go back to the Zealot on. The Zealot actually pretty awful against bio nowadays because of the speed. There was a game I played where I had essentially a 200 Zealot army with upgrades and everything. Played a bio army, and it basically only ended up doing like 30 supply of damage to the Terran bio force. I was pretty flabbergasted at how weak Zealots were. I was kind of confused about what was going on. We see here we're adding on Thermal Lance, which I still believe needs to be back to 9 range. Disruptors, and are trying more and more harass, flying around our Warp Prism. Up to 57 to 56 workers. Vibe here, basically saving up his money. He wants to build a really strong army all at once and not waste it on things like roaches and hydras if he doesn't have to. Because he knows that I already have things like disruptors and void rays out on the map. Making roaches and hydras versus those would not be very cost effective. We also see that we are adding on a fleet beacon and another Stargate. Coming in here with our disruptors. Jumping up to 12 kills. Clearing out a little bit of creep over here while we are attacking over in the base. Main base. Fully got this base up and running. Vibe just now getting this base and only mining at about half efficiency on this map, or on this base. We see some infestors here waiting to catch this warp prism. Moving over to the side. Adding on some carriers now. Throwing in some adepts into this expansion. Coming on over here with our disruptors. Go from 30 to 38 workers killed. So 8 more added on to those disruptors. Very nice. Just keeping the pressure on. Not letting Vibe get up to as many drones as he would like on this number of bases. And this is kind of bad for Zerg too. Definitely want to be expanding to the bottom instead of to this side. When I first started playing this map, I thought if you respawn in this position, in the bottom left, that maybe you would want to take this base. Or if you spawned in the top right, maybe you want to take this base. But taking these bases is pretty bad because the spacing between these two bases, and especially from here to here, or from here to here, is really bad. Unfortunately, we do have our Warp Prism picked off. We do get 3 infestors, but our disruptors are pretty defenseless now, and they do get picked off. Not that bad of a trade. Could have gone a lot worse. but definitely not something that too upset with. We are on Carrier Colossus now, which is basically the ultimate Sky Toss army. I have had my my thoughts put out there on the new Viper Fungal combo that you can do with Zerg. It's pretty fucking broken. Actually, I think I went over that in one of my games with Demaga. I think it was one of those games where you could really see how much damage that does together. It's kind of crazy that that Viper spell does that much damage, especially when you can't move your units. Coming in here, doing some sick and terrible damage to this base over here. We also have a Warp Prism flying around on the side. Have some Adepts over here as well. Basically just trying to pull vibe in as many directions as we can. Have our Warp Prism down here, warping in some Dark Templar. Also adding on some Zealots. Our Adepts did get picked off, but we're all the way up on Carriers and Disruptors now. We're also adding on this base in the top left. So Vibe's economy is pretty dead. About to lose his hive. He does not have those Vipers, which we were just talking about, that are so strong. Basically the in-game army unit that Zerg wants to get up to, but without any hive. Vibe can't really add those on. Only able to add on Corruptors, and Corruptors not so hot versus Void Rays, as you guys very well know. Going up to +3 weapon attacks on ground. Getting another Warp Prism. Just want to keep adding on more and more pressure. Even though our army supply is a little bit lower than Vibe's right now, overall army value is higher. Our army composition is actually quite a bit higher, and in this position, Vibe actually only has this base and essentially no income. So he decides to tap out after scouting this base at the top. And after taking that much damage at the beginning from the Void Ray Adept, which is kind of the new army composition I wanted to show you guys in this game, Vibe definitely thinks that he's too far behind with Roach Hydra to come back in this game and taps out. But hopefully this replay was enjoyable for you guys, gives you guys some new ideas on unit compositions that you can go in Legacy of the Void. Like I've said time and time again, I definitely think that there needs to be some units either buffed or I don't know. I honestly don't know. Blizzard can give as many ideas as they want, and I can just tell them if they're going in the right direction or not. I think that's the best way. They are the developer after all. So I think they should head us off with what they think is right, and then we can give them the appropriate responses. I think Team Liquid has done a good job with that on the economy model. I think some of the Protoss players that are playing the game, Legacy of the Void, have provided some ample feedback on the changes that need to be made, and they are changing things. They have been changing Cyclones. So they are slowly getting there, and we can only hope it'll keep getting better. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the replay, and thanks for watching. See you guys in the next game. Peace.